So this woman on Thread says, this is interesting. Imagine fixing a man's balding hair, clearing his skin, introducing him to vegetables, taking him to your dermatologist, meal prepping him until he could halfway match your energy, and putting him on to luxury skincare and designer cologne through your PR packages, all for him to live a lie behind your back. Ladies, do not upgrade these men. Return them to their type. Bald, broken out, and surviving off gas station food. So, what does that sound like? It sounds like a woman that's been burned there. And granted, I understand what you're saying too, and part of it I actually agree with. And I agree with it for the comment I'm about to show you. So that was the original comment. And then this person responded to it. And he says, now notice how he even worded this. And I invited this gentleman on the show, and we got to schedule a time to do it, but he's going to come on. And he says, I hear your frustration, and honestly, it's valid. Take note out there if you want to give someone truly constructive criticism, where, and I don't even know if criticism is the right word for it here, but you want it to be well received. This is a good way to do it. I hear your frustration. They feel understood and heard, and honestly, it's valid. Great start. Now, I might not have said but. I would have said and here's the truth. You didn't get played. You gambled on potential instead of reality. You saw what could be, not what was. That kind of love is noble, but it's risky. Next time, choose a man who's already walking in the standards you value, not one you have to build from the ground up. It's not your job to raise him. It's your job to receive him. And I think that's a good way. That's a good way to see it for both men and women. You don't want to get too blinded by someone's potential. You want to always keep in mind what is in front of your eyes. How are they right now? I always say, if you have to hope they would go back to the way they were, or you have to really hope they're going to change, that's a problem. And that woman there, it sounds like she went to Home Depot to find a dude, and she got a fixer-upper, and she thought she was a Build-A-Bear woman there, and she did all these things for him, but she might have been doing what I talked about in the previous clip. She was putting in more effort than that man was willing to do himself. The most she ever should have done was match his effort to grow. And that in any kind of healthy partnership, you want to find someone that is on equal ground as you, or at least pretty close to that. And that's going to be a person that they've done the work on themselves. They're in a good position in life. You were on equivalent ground, not someone that really needs to pull this other person up, because maybe that person's not ready to change. Maybe they don't want to change, because those are the other things. I have 3 rules for giving. 1, or helping for that matter. Does that person even want to help themselves? Because if not, you got to stop trying. Because now they're putting in 0 effort. Matching 0 effort is 0 effort. Keep that in mind. The next part is, are they willing to do something about it and recognize it's even an issue? Because if they're not willing or recognize, again, no use. And then, are they putting in the footwork to change? And if someone is putting in the footwork, okay, if you're there for them, you're on their team, you can match their effort in that case. But that's really it. But a lot of people, I think, they get themselves in trouble because they have this idea of what love is. They have this idea that, well, I would do all these things for this person if I love them. But there's a wisdom in knowing when to let people do the work themselves. And I think in this day and age in particular, there's a lot of people who miss that. They don't realize the wisdom in letting people get some consequences, in letting people do the work and grow on their own. It doesn't look good sometimes from the outside. You might want to really save them from consequences or protect them from all these negative outcomes, but it's really not your responsibility to do so. And if they're not doing that for themselves, they're not putting in the footwork, taking accountability for themselves, what are you doing? What are you doing? They're not willing. They're not even trying. And maybe that's what that woman who was the one this person's replying here to, maybe that's what she was doing. She was trying a little too hard to help a guy that didn't even want to help themselves. And then the guy cheated. And then she's probably the kind of woman that would relate to that meme. Being good doesn't get you loved. Being good gets you used. And as I always say, if anyone I know relates to that, I would ask them the question, what is your definition of good? Because unfortunately, a lot of the people that get burned, their definition of good is endless second chances, projecting all of their good qualities onto someone else, overlooking bad behavior, overlooking disrespect, paying attention to their words more than their actions, and not remembering actions speak the loudest of all, and your actions communicate what your priorities are and what you find important. Neglect those important lessons, then you can wind up in some bad spots. And if that woman were to put that over that dude's behavior, I bet you he would not have checked those off in a good place. And he said, oh, his actions were probably communicating some of that. And it sounds like he was just enjoying like her trying to do all this stuff for him, and he was taking things as he could, but he really wasn't meeting her halfway. And then she got a little upset and resentful, understandably so. But part of her taking radical accountability and extreme ownership would be taking a look at her part in the situation. And that does not mean it's her fault. Does not mean it's her fault, but it is what she can change. All she can change is herself. And that is true. Doesn't mean how he treated her was her fault. Doesn't mean it's her fault that that guy cheated. No. But she can take a look at what could I have done differently. That's where her power is. And there's two kinds of people out there. The kinds of people that understand that because they truly want better results. And then there's the people that don't understand that. They want to be a victim. They want their victimhood validated. And those kinds of people stay stuck, unfortunately. And I don't like it to be black and white, but that's how I see it now. And I think, again, timing matters. I wouldn't tell that person instantly, like, no, you should be and weaponize accountability against them. And this guy, maybe he did do that a little bit. I'm not sure the timing of all this, but he did try to say something in a understanding way, a way that had the receiver in mind. It wasn't just him selfishly saying what came to his mind to make himself feel good or to virtue signal to other people that might agree with him. He actually said something in a way that made it most likely she was willing to listen. And at that point, he does that. It's most likely to be received well, and she might actually do something different. That's what I would say. What's going on there, curious one?